Explosive reactive armor, or ERA for short, is a pretty common form of protection for ground vehicles, mostly tanks and infantry fighting vehicles. It is mostly found on Eastern tanks, but is also common on NATO vehicles too. But one common argument against ERA is that it is very dangerous for the infantry nearby, since it is literally an explosive mounted on a tank, often with a flier plate which is supposed to fly off to reduce the penetration of whatever hit the tank. There are many different types of ERA, but having an explosive filler is mandatory, since that is what makes ERA ERA. So is it actually dangerous? Well, yes, of course it is. As I said, it's literally an explosive with metal around it. Of course it's dangerous. But what the people making those arguments often forget is, it is also extremely dangerous to stand anywhere near the tank to begin with. First of all, tanks need to fire their guns, and the modern tank guns produce extreme amount of force when firing. It's so severe that the shockwave alone has a possibility of killing anyone in the near vicinity. Next thing to worry about the tank guns is that the armor-piercing ammunition all modern tanks fire is discarding Sabo. That means that there is a dart which is carried through the gun barrel with the surrounding metal Sabo. After the projectile leaves the gun barrel, the metal Sabo discards in multiple predetermined pieces and flies off in different directions with initial velocity of over 1500 meters per second and can fly to well over 1 kilometer away from the tank. I don't need to tell you that the big metal pieces flying at those speeds can be very deadly. And now the biggest flaw in that argument is that the ERA is meant to go off when a tank is hit. Most of the time, ERA is meant to go off when struck by a high explosive anti-tank or heat projectile, rocket or missile. And those are the most common anti-tank threats on the battlefield. What people often forget is that heat explodes quite a bit when it hits something. In fact, for decades, NATO tanks did not have a designated high explosive projectile, because heat shells were used as anti-infantry projectile on top of being designated for light armored vehicles. So even if there was no ERA on a tank, a hit from even an RPG can kill you if you're close enough. Not to mention something stronger like high caliber anti-tank guided missiles, which really pack a punch. Well, yes, ERA does add a bit of an oomph to the punch. Would you really want to stand anywhere near a vehicle with or without ERA if it gets hit by a missile or a rocket? And at the end of the day, the tank or an IFV can get hit and explode, with very deadly consequences. In many armies, it is common practice for infantry not to stand anywhere in the tank's frontal arc, since it's the area most likely to get hit. I've seen some going in the rear parts of the vehicles or directly behind them, and those are kinda fine I guess, since a hit to the rear, especially if there is infantry looking out for threats, is extremely unlikely. So at the end, while ERA alone is dangerous, it's also very dangerous to stand near a tank anyway, since a hit on the tank can also kill you, and the tank firing its gun can also be deadly. That would be all. I just want to take this moment to shout out at my friend's website, Land Air Sea Defense. There is an article on T90M there written by yours truly, and I will probably write something else there in the future. The website is relatively new, so my article is the only thing there so far, but check it out nevertheless. I'll leave the link in the description. If you like my content, you can support me on Patreon, or just leave a like or sub to the channel if you're new. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you all in the next video. Have a nice day.